Senator Patterson, I believe you've got the call for the opposition.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to ask some questions about high-risk technology vendors from authoritarian countries. Starting with Shenzhen DGI Innovation Technology, are you familiar with the developments in the United States last year in relation to DGI?
Yes.
Yeah. So just to recap for anyone who's not, in October the Department of Defence blacklisted the company because they assessed it was secretly controlled by the People's Liberation Army, and it has also been sanctioned by the US government for its involvement in human rights abuses in Xinjiang. Have you been in consultation with your international counterparts in relation to this kind of technology?
I'd have to throw to the Deputy National Security on that.
Senator, yes, we have.
Pardon me, sorry?
Yes, we have.
You have. And what have you discussed with your international counterparts?
I think you've paraphrased the concern quite well, very well, Senator, in terms of some of those issues.
And so, would it be a concern to you if the AFP was using technology provided by DGI?
Senator, I'm not going to go into the actual capability that AFP uses, but just to provide some assurances that any risks in relation to these issues have been fully mitigated through the AFP.
There's different ways you can mitigate it. You could mitigate it by not using the company, or there are technical means that you could try and mitigate it. But the Pentagon, with its budget and its resources, doesn't believe that they can mitigate it through technical means. They believe the only way to eliminate the threat is to stop using the products altogether. So does the AFP have a capability that's greater than the Pentagon, or has the AFP stopped using the DGI?
The AFP certainly doesn't have a capability bigger than the Pentagon, Senator. We're transitioning out.
Right, so you do have DGI drones? You have had?
We have had. We're transitioning out.
That's welcome. How many drones did you have?
Senator, I'm not going to provide that sort of granular detail in terms of what our capability is, but again, it's an issue that's been identified, it's an issue we've addressed, and we're transitioning out of that technology.
When was the decision made to transition out of it?
It's been a decision that we've been obviously discussing with our international partners, but also our intelligence partners at the Commonwealth level, and it's a position we've been moving to for the last number of months.
Last number of months. Could you be a bit more specific about when the decision was taken?
Look, Senator, I'd have to take that on notice, but it's been a live issue for the last 3 to 6 months in terms of those sorts of issues.
Right, so it would be helpful to me if you could be more specific, because when I put this in a question on notice to the Attorney General's Department and asked that it be answered on behalf of all the agencies within the Attorney General's portfolio, the answer, which was question number 1728, came back, disclosure of whether or not the AFP uses particular equipment provided by specific manufacturers may compromise the AFP's operational or personal security, and so therefore the AFP is unable to provide this information. But you've just done so. You've said the AFP has used these drones.
Well, I'm trying to be helpful, Senator.
I know, and I'm grateful for that. I give you credit for that. So it would be even more helpful in that spirit if you could be specific about the deadline. And if you can't do that right now, I'll accept it on notice.
We'll take that on notice, Senator.
Thank you. When I asked the AFP when I asked the Attorney General's Department and through it the AFP the same question about Hikvision Vision and Dahua cameras, the same answer came back that the AFP couldn't answer. In the spirit of helpfulness, could you also assist with the cameras? Has the AFP ever had these cameras?
We don't use them.
Great. I really welcome that as well. Perhaps this is one for the Secretary then of the Department. The AFP's just put my mind at ease by saying they never had these cameras. I think that could have been answered in question 1080, and they've also been candid that they have had the drones, but they're getting rid of them, which is also welcome. Why couldn't the Attorney General's Department have answered that question when I put it through the Senate?
Senator, what I would say is we always liaise with the agencies themselves when we prepare those portfolio responses. So I note the advice that's been given by Deputy Commissioner McCartney today, and we will always encourage agencies to provide us with as much information as we can, but we do draw upon the advice that we're given by the agencies.
Senator, I back that up. I suppose the agency collates the responses, and potentially we could have been more fulsome, but we do. It's that balance in terms of providing you some comfort that we're mitigating this risk against the fact that you know, it's the issue of sensitive capability that we utilise on a daily basis is really not one that we want to ventilate too much through this committee or in the public arena.
Sure, and I would never ask you to do something that harmed, you know, national security or law enforcement. Let me make that clear. And if it is your judgment that it is simply unsafe to provide these answers, I will always accept that judgment. But I do want to be able to test it, as I've just done, and I'm grateful for your assistance. I just note for the record that ASIS answered these questions, and if ASIS and the ASD and ASIO and other agencies can answer questions like this, then and do it in a safe way, then I would have the same expectation that AFP can do so. Thank you. Okay, moving on to